Hello, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So lots of great stuff to go over today, as always, as you know that. Starting out with the stats, and they're looking a little bit better. 340 were sold last week. It was the end of the month. So January is behind us. So that means hopefully that things will be picking up. Now, I have seen things picking up, so that's really good. When it comes down to it, there were a couple houses this week that I saw go on the market and had multiple offers and higher than asking and all of that kind of good stuff. And actually, one of my buyers got one of them, and they were very excited about it, that this house was actually listed at 125, so you would think that maybe there would be multiple offers on it. It's only 1,100 square feet, but basically there were probably about 10 or 15 offers on that house. And I think it was the price, it was everything that was going on. This house obviously needs a lot of work and everything that goes along with it. But there are bargains out there if that's something that you're looking for. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. And you can find what you're looking for, but it does take a bit of work. And that's what I'm here for, is to help you navigate through those if that's what you want to do. But basically, getting back to our stats, there were 340 homes that were sold last week, basically 228 the week before, so a good increase. The median price went to 425, which is still a little bit lower than it was at the high, which was like 470 or somewhere thereabouts. But we're at a good place when it comes to that. And the inventory increased by only 27, so that makes it at 7,740. So of the 340, 30 of them were under 250, 21 between 250 and 300, 96 between 300 and 400, 71 between 400 and 500, 100 between 500 and a million, and 22 over a million. That comes out to, when you divide that all out, to 5.25 months of inventory, which is a normal market. But I think we need to look at a little bit more when we've got another week under our belt to see really where we're at, because I think we're still heading a little bit to a buyer's market. So when you're looking at how many months under 250, they're at 3.97, 5.18 between 250 and 300, 3.94 between 300 and 400, 5.29 between 400 and 500, 6.28 between 500 and a million, and over a million, there were 8.06 months of inventory. So when you're looking at that, 30 houses that sold, and the number of listings is 516 under 250, and that gives us a total of 3.97 months of inventory. So the bottom line is that there are some choices out there. Like I mentioned, one of my buyers got a house that was listed at 125,000 this week, and they were pretty excited about it. They haven't decided if they're going to move into it or if they're going to fix it and flip it. So, all kinds of opportunities and things and all that good stuff out there. So the list ask price, where that came in this week, was at 96.1 overall. Under 250 was at 88.06, and that is definitely pretty low. So those houses need work, and some of them obviously have been probably sitting on the market for a little while. So they got some good price reductions there. Between 250 and 300, you're at 98.2, so not too much different than it's been for quite some time. And then you're kind of stay that way. Even over a million was at 95.02 this week. So that's kind of basically what's happening as things go on and everything there. Now, one thing that I don't always talk about, but I think it's interesting to note as well, is the under 250, most of those houses are 2.2s. And then you go to 3.2s all the way up until you get to 400,000. Then you have an average of 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. And then when you get over a million, you've got 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. So, and 1 half bath on average. And the square footage, when you're looking under 250, is at 1,200. When you go to 200 to 300, that's at 1,500. Then between 300 and 400, it's at 1,600 square feet. Then when you go to 400 to 500, it's at 1,975 square feet. And then 500 to a million is at 2,500 square feet. And then over a million, the average is at 4,351. So it's not only price, it's also size, it's bathrooms, it's all of those things that come into play when you're looking at all of those figures. So that might give you an idea as well. If you're looking under 250, the average size of a house is only 1,209 square feet. So, that might be something that comes into play that when you're making your decision about that as well. So when we're looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, let's see where we're at on those. There were 90 that sold last week versus 77 the week before. And the median price is at $295. So only 130,000 less than a single family home. So that's kind of what's going on like that. The inventory was at 4,053, where there were only 90 that sold. So you can tell that what's going to happen with that when I talk about the months of inventory. On overall, we're at 10.39 for the condos, townhomes, and villas. So when you're looking at that, that's something that you need to be considerate, know about, and everything as well. So, but when we're looking at of those 90, how it shakes out, under 250, there were 36 of them. 250 to 300, there were 10. 300 to 400, there were 33. 400 to 500, there were 3. 500 to a million, there were 8. And then there were none that sold over a million. So the months of inventory, like I said, under 250, we're at 10.14. 250 to 300, we're at 14.19. 300 to 400, we're sitting at 7 months of inventory. And then 400 to 500, we're looking at 38 months of inventory. 500 to a million, 9 months of inventory, and over a million, you can't divide out 0, but there are 17 on the market versus, the 400 to 500, there's 498, and 300 to 400, there's 1,029. So that makes a big difference. The final list asking sale price was at 96.28, so a little bit less than the single family homes, but that's mostly because the under 250 were at 93.69, and that was 36 of them. And then all of the other categories are at 97s, so not a lot of room. So the ones that are selling are kind of there. So that's kind of what the scoop is when we're talking about the stats. But I think that the bottom line is that what you need to know and what you need to look at is really knowing what you want to do when the time is right for you to purchase your home. There is inventory out there, so you do have choices. But if the property is priced right, they're going pretty close to asking price. And basically, they might go flying off the shelf with multiple offers. I find that all the time that people say, gosh, how can we have multiple offers? The thing's been sitting on the market for 200 days or whatever. And the bottom line is because it seems like, it's that reticular activator that I've always heard about, that, it's like if you say you want a red car, then all you see is red cars. So it's kind of like you pick out that house and everybody else did as well. So you want to make sure that you're, when you're looking, there is some sense of urgency to make sure that you are getting the house that you want and you don't necessarily sit on it a long time. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So lots of great stuff to go over. We went over the stats a little earlier, but I've got a lot of other things to go over as well. And I was just looking through some interesting real estate facts that I thought were worth going over. And one of the things is that an average homeowner stays in their house 10 plus years. It's actually 13.2 years for a typical homeowner. The median length of time has increased by 31% since 2012. And homers in the Northeast stay in their home the longest. And the other hand, home ownership tenure in the mountain states is the lowest. So I think around us, we're somewhere around 10 and all of that kind of good stuff. 89% of sellers use a real estate agent, so 11% do not. And basically, so the primary reason is to avoid the hassle and time consuming process of getting their property sold, while 7% sold through for sale by owner and less than 1% sold by an iBuyer. So you might say, okay, so what is an iBuyer and how does that all work and all of that kind of good stuff? So there are companies out there, and we actually have a platform that we can get cash offers on from all of these iBuyers, and we kind of get them bidding against one another is basically what we do. So only 1% in this study were selling to those companies, but they're selling. But I think it's becoming more and more the norm, and it's kind of going like the cars did. It's like years ago when I was a little girl, my dad would always, buy cars off of people off the street and everything like that. And you don't see a lot of that going on today, that people turn them in at the dealers or an auction or trade it in or whatever. And then people buy them off of some kind of a lot. And the interesting thing to me is that, and then the next phase that I saw is like when you would trade in your car at the auto dealer, they would have it on their lot and they would sell it in their used car lot. Today, they're very strategic in regards to what they get for their used car lots and, what they put on their used car lots. And so they sell a lot of the cars that they bring in at auction that go to a different kind of car lot that might match the car, for example, and that kind of thing. So it's very interesting the way the cars did it. And I think the houses are kind of heading in that direction as well. And so basically what happens is that these iBuyers, as they call them, come in and they might purchase your home, and then you can move on to another home at the same time and not be bothered with people coming in and everything like that, and everything up front. So there are multiple options that you have as a buyer today, and I'm not going to get into them right now as a seller right now. And so that you might, like one of them, I'll just go into one of them, for example. So one of them is that you might take the equity out of your current home, use it on your new home, and your previous home is then put up for sale, and you sell it after you've moved on and everything like that. So there are opportunities for you to do that right now. And a lot of people like that because they think, okay, well, this is, just easier on our family. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to, any of those kinds of things. You might say, okay, well, so then what happens if it doesn't sell? Well, that's all negotiated up front with you because the company that's giving you the loan on the new house, they have a purchase price that they're going to buy your house for if it doesn't sell. But you're going to be able to get that done for sure. So it's basically really interesting that you're able to do that. And 13% of the sellers sold their house because they didn't have enough space. And 23% of sellers sold their homes to relocate near their loved one. And 10% sold their house due to changes in family status, such as marriage and that kind of thing. So in 2023, 50% of home purchases were by first-time buyers. So that was 50%. That's a huge percentage. That was an increase from 45% in 2022. And among the first-time buyers, 49% were millennials aged 29 to 43, and Gen Z adults aged 18 to 28 contributed 27% of the first-time purchases. So that was pretty cool. Over 52% of the U.S. buyers found their new homes online. So that's up a little bit. It was at 50%. So that being at 52%, I think that's something that actually is worth talking about, because everybody thinks that they're going to find their house online, and only 52% of them do. Now, 52%, I'm not discounting, is a huge percent, but that means that 48% found them some other way. So if you're just looking online, you're keeping yourself away from those other 48% of the houses. And I think that that's something that's definitely that everybody thinks that that's the only way that you're going to find them and everything online. But basically, there are other ways that people find houses. So I just want to let you know, and that's really what I do, is I find houses offline, and not that you're going to find online 9 times out of 10. And because I'm not going to go where everybody is, and that's one of the big things that we talk about. But that's a significant increase, because it was 37% in 2010. So 52% of the buyers found their houses online in 2023. We don't have the 2024 stats yet, and 37% in 2010. So pretty interesting. Now, 78% of home buyers bought their home using a mortgage. So that is basically, pretty interesting as well. There is a lot of cash that's going on. So that would be 22% would be buying with cash, but basically 78% are getting mortgages, and 94% of those buyers were millennials aged 24 to 32 years old that were buying it with a mortgage. So 59% of recent home buyers were married couples. Single females were 19%, and 10% were single males. And unmarried couples represented 9% of recent home buyers. So the U.S. housing market value is more than the GDP of the U.S. and China combined. So currently, the United States residential real estate market is worth $88.91 trillion, and California has the biggest share with 21.2% of the pie. And then North Dakota and Wyoming account for the smallest portions, but each holds, basically it says that each holds 66 billion. And like I said, 88.91 trillion is basically what the total value of all of real estate is. So 17.6 million Americans spend up to 30% of their income on rent. So that's a huge number right there of what they're doing. 66% of Americans owned a house in 2023. So, and basically those aged 65 and older had the highest home ownership rate at 79%, and those under 35 had the lowest at 38.7%, which only makes sense. And so, let's see, what else can I tell you here? Okay, this is interesting. U.S. homes with black or charcoal front doors sell at higher prices. So this was a study that Zillow did, and they found out that they sold for an average of $6,000 more than homes with other door colors. So how crazy is that? So the perceived sophistication and modernity of a black front doors are believed to have created this trend. So those are my little interesting facts that I'm going to tell you about real estate today. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at 407. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I'll see you after the break. I got a little distracted there. See you soon. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So there are some key things that I was just remembering that I think are really interesting that you need to know about Florida real estate. I was talking about real estate overall in the last segment, but basically one of the key things about Florida is that we do have a lot of homeowners associations. Now, there are so many people that think that, or not think, they want a property that's not in a homeowners association, but when they go to look, what they want in the house is in a homeowners association for the most part. Now, there are exceptions, and there are some areas of Orlando that definitely are not in homeowners associations. But for the most part, I would say probably 80% of the properties are in HOAs, and that's what we call them, the homeowners association. Basically, and the rules and regulations vary so much from one to the next, and the fees vary from one to the next. Whether it's a few $100s for a year or whether it's, several $1,000s for a year. It can vary so significantly, it's not even funny. So you have to look at it, though, apples to apples. So I was talking to one gentleman that lives in one of a more exclusive HOAs and a more expensive HOAs. And he was telling me, because, for example, what's included in that is golf. So it's 100% of your golf is included in your HOA fee. And you can go golfing every day. So, and it doesn't cost you any money. So obviously there is a fee, for that golf, and that's in your HOA. It's also has what they call the country club in this community, and you belong to that country club, and you actually have $75 of meals that is included every month in your HOA fee. So if you're going to have HOA fees, then obviously, and it's going to be $75, then $75 are definite hard costs that you're going to have for that. They also include in the HOA fee cable and internet. So again, additional fees that are going to be included in that. And so when you're looking at that, and then they have community pools, and they have a community resort area, and all of those kinds of things. So basically, there is so many things out there that could vie for your attention when it comes to that HOA and knowing what it is. And like I tell people all the time, you could find a house that you like in one community, and the HOA fee could be something that you're not interested in, but then you just go right next door to another location, and the HOA fee might be half of it, and you might not have all of those things that you want. So you could, all those things that are in that other one. So it just comes down to really evaluating what you want to look for and what you want and all of that kind of good stuff. One of the things that I think is really important when you're looking at and you're considering this time of year is that we're in February, and we're February 9th right now. And so if you are in a house and you are a Florida resident, you want to make sure that you do have your homestead on that house. And that is for the taxes. You have to apply for it before March 1st. You have to have owned that house as of December 31st. So this is the perfect time to talk about homestead. And so what you do is you go to your county, and you could go to your county site, and you could search homestead for your county, and it's going to tell you what you need to do to apply for it. And you probably have to show your driver's license, and that, it's a Florida license, obviously, and those kinds of things. And they have to verify that you own the property and that you're living in it, and all of those kinds of things to get the Florida resident discount on the taxes. So the easy way of saying it, and it's much more complicated than I'm saying it, but with homestead, you're going to get roughly about a $750 discount right off the bat. And then you're going to limit the increases that can be made on that homestead property. So, every year that you live in it. And then there's also a portability with that homestead that you can go to your next house with it as well. Now, that is really complicated, and the best thing to do when it comes to that is to actually call the tax adjuster and say, "Hey, I live here now, and I'm going to be moving here. What are my taxes going to be?" And go through the whole deal because it depends on how long you've lived in the house and how much is portable and all of those kinds of things. So you definitely want to get the straight from the county what it's going to be instead of trying to figure it out. Now, one of the biggest things that happens in real estate when I'm working with buyers is that they're looking at the taxes that are online and they're comparing, do I want to buy this property because this is what the taxes are versus property B, and looking at because this is what the taxes are. And that's the biggest mistake that they could generally make, because if one of them is homesteaded and one of them is based on a property that somebody bought 10 years ago and at a price they bought 10 years ago, and versus the other one that maybe it's owned by an investor and so the taxes are with the property value and everything right now, they're probably going to have the same property tax when it's all said and done. Now, there are a couple of exceptions that are going to happen in that, because if there is what we call a community district development, a CDD, that's included in the taxes. That's almost like the homeowners association that I was talking about a few minutes ago. And so that's also included in the taxes as well. So that is going to make a difference. But for the most part, if you're in the same county, in the same area, just a different subdivision, and you're looking at house A and house B, and you're going to pay, say, $500,000 for house A and $500,000 for house B, you're probably going to have taxes that are going to be the same for either property that you buy. So you definitely want to look at that when you're looking at houses, and that's why it's so important that you're working with somebody that knows what they're doing, that can point those things out to you so you're very aware in regards to what's going on and everything like that. So homestead, if you aren't homesteaded right now, I would strongly suggest that you put that on your calendar to get that done ASAP. I actually, have some acquaintances that I know, and they had bought a house several years ago, and they were telling me, geez, these property taxes are kind of killing us. And I said, what do you mean they're kind of killing you? Aren't they staying the same? And they said, no. And I had met them after they had bought their house. And so basically I said, well, let me look into it. And I looked in, and sure enough, they did not have it homesteaded. So their taxes had actually tripled, where they could have gone up only a couple of $100, throughout that whole time frame. And so they ended up selling that house and moving into something else because their family was growing and everything as well. So they were going to be doing that. But they did, not know of that. And so that's why I'm always harping on it. Hey, if you're not homesteaded, that's something that you want to make sure that you've got and that you're looking at what's going on. Another thing that we run into in Florida is we run into insurance, and insurance is a big deal when you come here. So basically, it's as a result of, everybody thinks it's because of all the hurricanes, which definitely plays a part. But then it comes down to that there's been a lot of fraud that has happened in Florida over the years when it comes to insurance, and it's not. It's just. I think it's more that people are taking advantage. It's not that they were trying to commit fraud or anything like that, but there are definitely a lot of claims that are done on a lot of roofs that maybe did or maybe didn't need to be replaced, but were, and everything. And as a result of that, the insurance prices had gone through the roof. Now, in the last few years, there was some legislation to kind of curb that a little bit, and it's working. And so as a result of that, the insurance rates are going down. And so that is nothing that is not welcomed by all of us here. But I do get the comments that the insurance prices are really high when people are looking at it. And then a lot of times, sometimes people are saying that taxes are really high and everything as well, the property taxes, which, when you look at the big scheme of things, in my opinion, they're not bad. I think that, maybe they're cheaper or they're more expensive than another part of the country, but we don't have income taxes and all of those kinds of things as well. So when you're looking at the big picture and the big scheme of things, are things really sitting in a situation that that makes it so it's more expensive? I don't think so. I've lived in a couple of other states, and I've lived here for 25 years now. I can't believe it, but basically, the taxes here don't even compare to the other states and everything of where I was living. And to me, it's very reasonable. But again, there's that CDD that might be included there. That might be something that you're getting value for that you don't know. So you might need to check that out a little bit. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I think that when you're looking to buy or sell, you definitely need to know what the market conditions are. And I go over them broadly every week in regards to what's going on, but basically it comes down to very, very, very local in looking at, what's going on and all that kind of stuff. I was working with, or am working with, one of my sellers this week, and one of the things that we were looking at is the comparison of their home. Actually, two sellers that come to mind, and one of them is in a neighborhood that has got, decent HOAs and stuff like that. And the other one is as well, but it's more short-term rental, even though they're living there long-term and everything. And the interesting thing is that the houses with a pool in both neighborhoods sell for significantly more than the houses without a pool. Now, when I first started selling real estate in 2005, which is obviously a while ago, but the difference between a house with a pool and without a pool was maybe $5,000, and that's it. It didn't matter what kind it was. But when you're talking about highly specialized neighborhoods, the one house is in Margaritaville, and they're looking at selling, and so that's obviously a very everybody knows Margaritaville and everything, the name. And basically, short-term rental and a lot of stuff going on there and everything like that. And but there's properties in there with pools that are selling for almost $100,000 more than than about the same size property without a pool. And somebody said, well, that's an awful lot for a pool. But when you're thinking about it, if you're on vacation and you're in a 4 or 5 bedroom house, which all of these are, with 4 or 5 bathrooms, you've got all ages probably there, maybe a couple of families, maybe different people. And when you're coming, they all have all the community pools and the resort pools and all that kind of stuff. But, for all those different ages, you would like to have a place where some of them could just go right outside and go swimming, as opposed to, or in the sun or whatever, as opposed to going to that community pool where everybody's got to get everything together and pack it all up and go and all of that kind of good stuff. And so it's just much more convenient to have the pool, even if it's only 1 or 2 age groups that might be using it at any point in time or whatever. And so those properties are going to rent for a lot more. And so they do become much more valuable, is what it is. And so when you're looking at the comparable properties, you can't compare the properties that don't have a pool with the ones that do. So you have to really look at that. So that's even within one community, the difference. And then when you're looking at some of these other communities, it's like, what's the value of a golf course? What's the value of that pool that's there? And how many other houses are you competing with that have pools in that neighborhood? In this one community that I was looking at, there were maybe, 10 houses on the market with pools, and there were only 5 that had sold. in the last 6 months. So that means there's kind of a glut of houses with pools in that community. In another community I was looking at, there was only one house with a pool that was on the market, and there were 8 that had sold in the last 6 months, in that community. So that's what I mean by the market is so very sensitive to basically your little pocket of wherever it is that you're going to live. So when you're looking at it, it's really important to somewhat be picky in regards to where you're going to live in an area that people definitely want and what they want to do with it and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm very conscious in figuring out, what we can do and making sure that we're being completely open with the sellers in regards to what the value of it is and what their expectations and everything are. And we put a lot of those things in writing. And I put a range that this is what I think your house is going to sell for between this range and that range. And then what we do with that is that we actually go to bat, for our sellers and make sure that that's going to happen. And we put our money where our mouth is. If it doesn't fall within that range, then we knock down our commission somewhat, as a result of it. So I'm always trying to do things to make sure that we're fair, that we're putting our money where our mouth is and doing what is expected, for the people. But then the next thing that we're looking at, and so that might come into pricing strategy. But one thing that most people probably don't know is that you're going to get the most activity on your property when you first put it on the market. And so, there's never a chance to make, a second chance to make a first impression. And that is never more true than in real estate. And so when we're bringing a house to the market, we want to make sure that we've got our I's dotted, our T's crossed, that everything is put together. So you don't want to put it together with sloppy pictures. You don't want to put it together without the pictures and everything like that. I mean, in certain markets, you can do that, but this doesn't happen to be one of them. So you want to make sure that when you're looking at prices, that you can determine the best price, for the home. And we go on history, we go on what's going on in the market. We can see kind of what's happening, at any point in time, and it makes it, really easy to tell and do and all that kind of good stuff. Basically, when it comes down to it, when you're putting your house on the market or you're looking as a buyer, you want to make sure that you're looking at the pros and cons of the different neighborhoods and their price range and look at it. And so there's, like I said, there's a lot of options and everything, but finding out what's really important to you is what's most important to us in determining how we're going to find out, what's the best thing for you as a buyer or a seller. For a seller, it's how much money you're going to put in your pocket. And for your buyer, it's how much money is going to leave your pocket, maybe over time, maybe right away, all of that kind of good stuff. But it comes down to really having somebody that you can really talk to and walk you through actually what's going on in this market and what you need to do. And that's what I love to do about my job and working with people. And everybody's got a story, and it's just so fun to establish and figure out what it all is. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody, and have fun watching the Super Bowl. Bye-bye.